Hi Suzanne, thank you for joining me. We are here today to talk about your journey to success, so thank you for coming. What I'd like to do, just a little introduction to you, and then we can talk about what's made you successful, how you got to where you are, and then discuss some of your advice for younger female talent as well coming in through the industry.
Of course, great. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's lovely to meet you. Potted history always needs to be potted. Favourite subject is oneself, is it not? So keeping it short and sweet. I was brought up in North Wales, which meant I have absolute love of countryside at my heart. It's really important to me, horses. I'll talk more about that, I've no doubt, later. But went to poly, didn't really know what I was going to do, did business studies, fell into a job doing customer service actually in photocopiers, so that's a long time ago, photocopiers and fax machines. But ended up in the sales team, then moved into the telco sector, and just kind of progressed from there through sales leadership. Was running some fairly large teams, and then at the time I'd moved from Orange to T-Mobile, and then we did a joint venture which created Everything Everywhere, which is EE today. Yeah. That was really interesting, going through a merger a transformation for two companies, two organisations. Some real highs and lows in that. There was redundancies obviously, but there was creation of great opportunity moving into 4G, if you can remember that. 4G seems like a long time ago, and but a fascinating time in terms of data and the importance of data. We didn't know it at the time, but the importance of speed and looking at videos and accessing whatever we want, watching videos, creating videos even, and sending them. Of course, at that time we didn't know that. It was a bit more of a business tool. And then from EE, again, I was in B2B sales there, had some huge teams in EE, and then I ran their franchise team as well, which was great, so franchising their retail stores. So that was a different kind of angle for me. Then moved to Samsung, headed up their B2B team in the UK, worked a lot with European teams. Samsung was an incredible company to work for. But then decided, so my little story for my link, I guess, is I met, there was a business dinner, and I'd invited my husband's boss at the time, and he was sat next to me, and he said to me, "Oh, what's your exit plan?" I think I was about 34 or so at the time. "What's your exit plan?" I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean exit plan?" And he said, "Well, when do you want to leave? What are you doing? When do you want to change stuff?" I don't know, I'm 34. But anyway, we talked through it all, and basically he'd said, "At what point do you want to make changes in your life that mean you do something very different, and how do you get there?" And it had a really profound effect, to the point that from that moment on, all my career choices were based around, was it progressing to my goal? Was it? And my goal was, at 50, I want to be able to make a choice of what I do. And so, as I say, all my career choices kind of got me to that point. And then I was 50 at Samsung, and it just so happened, I thought, do you know what? I do need to do something different. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do another year of cranking the handle of the same thing. Consumer tech is a bit like that. It's a big, mature market. It's, another double-digit growth, more product sales. And then my great friend who I ride, Samantha Seaton, who's the CEO of Money Hub, said, "Look, why don't you just come and work for me 3 days a week, keep it really cool, just help me get into some markets, other markets." So I was like, "Yeah, great, that sounds fantastic." So we did that right just before pandemic. So literally learning financial services, new tech, software as a service, because I'd done network and then hardware and then software as a service, all from my desk. But I haven't looked back, I love it. And then we restructured the company at the beginning of this year following a successful funding round. And so I took on the role of managing director of one of our divisions.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so here we are today. So longish potted.
No, it's a real story, and we often ask what motivated you to get to where you are, what was the driver behind that, and I think it was just that one question that made you almost reevaluate what you were doing, tying in with life plans and career plans as well. So it's really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I do think there are, as I say, there are kind of pivotal discussions or moments in people's lives. You know, some are good, some aren't so good, some are big, some are really little small things like a conversation. But your motivations have to feed into something. You can't just wake up every day and think, great, it's another day, off I go. There's always, in my experience and my belief is, there's always a reason for what you do, whether it's your children or it's, for me, the horses are really important. But just to have this light of, at 50, I want to be able to make, so financially stable enough to be able to make a decision to do something that's different, that I'm going to get something powerful out of. And sometimes you just have to take a risk and think, you know, because there's no guarantees in life, is there? But that was, for me, was the big kind of, I didn't need a push. I just needed a shining star for me to say, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
I motivate myself. I believe people motivate themselves. I think you can inspire people, but they motivate themselves. Again, because people have this thing that they want to achieve. You can inspire them to get on and achieve and how they achieve it. So yeah, your own motivation, but you're definitely having something that you're aiming for. And sometimes they're just building blocks to something, sometimes something small, sometimes something big. But yeah, I think waking up every morning, as I say, and without that thing can be quite hard.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah, like understanding what you're working towards and what you're striving to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So Money Hub, you've been successful with the funding, so great news for the company.
Yeah.
Your role now as MD, what does that entail more so?
So what we did as Money Hub's a fintech organisation. We have, we're based on open finance, open data, so open banking regulations, adding in open finance, so it wears open banking, so obviously based on bank data. Open finance incorporates then every single aspect of financial services data, and we have connections into all of those organisations. We have technology that then takes all of that data, makes it into something relevant through categorisation, and then we sell that technology and access to the data for enterprises to be able to then build products and services for themselves, for their customers.
Yeah.
And so prior to last year, as an organisation, we collectively kind of developed. Obviously people had their own roles and stuff, but everything was together in the organisation. We had payments, API capabilities, as well as a white label personal financial management app. But we decided we want to have very clear divisions to then invest and focus and grow those parts of the business. So the fourth part of the three that I just mentioned was, we call it decisioning, which is things like affordability.
Yes.
So the much better equivalent to credit checks. Credit check is great. It'll give you a view of people's, when they've borrowed before and what bank accounts they've got. So a kind of static view, and often an out-of-date view, but a static view of somebody's financial assets in a way, and where they've had loans. What open banking and open finance affordability and the decisioning element can do is show here and now today where I spend my money, who I spend it with, where I spend it, how often I spend it. Yeah. So real kind of patterned behaviour just from transaction data. So if you look in your bank account, you look in your app or your statements, and you read through where you spend your money, you can see absolutely a bit of a picture of what somebody does.
Yeah.
Now take that back 12 months or 2 years or something, and you can see when people have had a baby, when they change jobs, where they've decided to change their eating habits. You know, over COVID was really interesting, of course, because we all suddenly switched to the Just Eats and the Ubers and so forth, because we had to.
Yeah.
So ordering takeaways changed dramatically. And that all sounds maybe a little bit intrusive, but for somebody maybe who wants to have access to a product or a service that maybe they didn't have access before. So people who are on benefits, or they need access to a hardship tariff or something, cost of living affecting people obviously dramatically at the moment. So where people need to get access to products and services, by looking at financial data, you can prove either their financial position or that they're on benefits. Conversely, if people are applying for a loan, rather than making assumptions, so a lot of loan decisions are made based on outdated ONS data, what postcode you live in, what things do you do that you fit into a bucket. Yeah. So therefore our decision making is based on that bucket. And on top of that, will there be some buffers? Well, you've said you spend £300 on fuel a month, we'll make it 400 because you probably don't really know. Well, we take all of that guesswork away because it's based on what you actually spend your money on, and it's live and up to date. So lenders can be far more accurate, more confident, they can make better lending decisions. But it's not just lending, lending covers obviously £1,000 personal loan up to £250,000 mortgage, whatever it might be. It's car financing, even applying for a mobile phone contract. You still have a credit check. But that credit check doesn't tell you whether you can afford £35 or not. It just tells you whether you've had credit before, what bank accounts you've got, and what your balances are, and lots of other information. There's obviously a lot of data within that credit check, but it doesn't say how much you can afford and whether you're good for the £35. Now layering consumer duty on top of that,
yes,
all of these organisations have got a responsibility to ensure that they are doing the best for their customers in terms of outcomes, fair value. And again, so this data, it is not the panacea for consumer duty, absolutely not, but it's a great capability to add into your decision making and understanding and behavioural tracking of your customers.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Open banking is certainly one of the big topics of discussion at the moment in the industry, and you're at the heart of that now within MoneyHub. I think quite interesting, you've come from like a non-financial background and you've been able to make a success of your role within MoneyHub. It sounds very interesting, by the way.
It is.
I think from my point of view, what would you deem kind of prior experience or anything that you felt have led to your success and where it is today?
It's a great question, and obviously I was thinking about this over the last, since we spoke in the last couple of weeks. And I think because I've always sold in B2B, so I've always been in that kind of commercial environment where you're selling products and services that are about the business that you're selling to being able to do a better job for their customers.
It's really that commerciality piece, isn't it?
It's got to be, because if it doesn't work for the business, they're not going to do it. If it doesn't work for the consumer, the business isn't going to win. So you have to find that way that it is that classic win-win, but that both parties are going to get something out of it. And I guess because I've always had the consumer at the end of it, especially, mobile, Orange was an incredible step in the change in technology of way people viewed. I mean, we literally had those black and white phones, Blackberry at the time. They didn't do, obviously Blackberry was the first one that started to do something, but all we're doing was making mobile phone calls, that was it. Yeah. And then suddenly text messaging came in, and then Blackberry came in with their messaging service, and then suddenly you can get emails. So all of these things come on. So the consumer has always been the output. Tech is tech. Tech is somebody sat with their headphones on coding something. That doesn't mean anything to the consumer.
Yeah.
Tech only means something by what it does for us. And I guess I didn't feel walking into financial services, I'm not going to be able to do this. I was really confident the fact that it's an element of our everyday life, and it's just about how we help people understand more about that bit. So my circle I started with the network, which you need because that's how you pass the data, and then moved to the hardware. So that was then how you look at the data that's on your device. Now I'm in the world of, but why do I need all of that? Well, I need it because I want to know before I go and buy that dress, that pair of shoes, how much have I got in my bank account? So that kind of full circle.
Yeah.
So focus on consumer, but absolutely commerciality is super important. Doesn't matter how good your product is, if people don't know about it and it's not the right marketed price, then you've got nowhere for your business to go. So commerciality, absolutely heart of, I guess, success for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it ties in, I think, as well, because you've had the different industry experience. It's even more interesting for somebody like me who operates predominantly within financial services, but we do also support the telco, retail, consultancy and tech industries. The shift, and I know we've seen it over the past couple of decades as well, but the shift in the mentality, the ability, the agility almost as well, where you've transversed across non-financial into financial. I mean, what's been the biggest shift for you, do you think, that you've seen or experienced?
From the industries themselves?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I mean, consumer duty has undoubtedly helped financial services wake up.
We deal a lot with that at the moment,
It's, because before that, I think all the banks and financial services organisations have been striving towards being closer to their customers. But what's held them back is that commercial view and the fear of, I mean, again, this is me coming in from a non-financial services background, listening to how people talk about not just consumer duty, but also open finance and open banking, is there's a fear of advice. And even at a guidance level, there's a fear of giving advice in case it's wrong and has an impact. And there was a fear of an impact on profits and changes. And these are massive organisations. It's hard for companies like that to change. But you only have to look at the real tech companies. Apple bought Credit Kudos. They've bought a fintech. And they've done that so that they can get into the financial services. They're already in it, but they were doing it through partnering as their partner, which they've now taken out because they can do this themselves. They can start to develop their own products and services with this link into open finance and open banking through Credit Kudos. But I think overall the shift for all companies is you can't whitewash your customers anymore. We're all different as a consumer. We're different because of technology. We're different because of the access to information, to each other, to experiences, however they're presented, and whether that's from what you're buying today or it's from your friends or something you never bought before. But it's easy to get information. So therefore, when you engage with a company to buy something or have something or use something, your expectation is very different than my mum and dad, for instance, who their expectation would be it's quite formal and I ask for this and I get told I can have it or I can't. Whereas we don't act like that. And your children and my nephews and nieces act completely different again to me. So I think organisations have tech transformation has always been a word. Has always been a thing. Ever since I've been working. I would say now is probably the biggest element of tech transformation I'm seeing. And I think COVID, unfortunately, has had a big part in that. It's given people a kickstart to say, right, everybody's working from home, we've got to make it work.
Well, we've had to, haven't we?
We've had to. We've had to. And I don't think that's all good. I think we were just saying before, weren't we? You miss that face-to-face bit.
You do, yeah.
And
something to be said for human interaction and sitting down with a person rather than Teams meetings, which, yes, of course, we have to do a lot of now. But it's the human interaction as well that should support everything else that goes on just generally in the day-to-day.
But then you also talk to the Gen Zs. They don't actually need that. I've got my niece staying with me at the moment. She lives in Mozambique. She's come over to Hartbury College. She starts there on the 4th of September. And everything is about messaging. Nothing is about a phone call, because I was saying to her, I rang my other brother, her dad's brother, obviously my other brother, and to say, look, can you come over on whatever date? And she said, I said, yeah, I left him a message. Has he come back to you yet? No. And I said, yeah, I left a voicemail. She just didn't compute it. She said, have you had 2 blue ticks yet? And I said, no, I left him a voice. And I rang, the phone went to answer phone, and it's not a thing. So even though as our generation, my generation, older than you, we're still thinking face to face, I just wonder whether that is just such a declining thing that we just won't need chatbots, AI. All of this is what kids want.
It came up in our industry event this morning, actually, the use of AI more within the financial crime compliance world, how it can be integrated.
Absolutely.
I still do believe that there's a big place for human oversight to do with a lot of things, particularly when we deal with financial data, as you quite rightly mentioned within Money Hub.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's certainly one to watch for the coming months. So see how.
It definitely. In my Samsung days, I did a lot of work with the NHS and Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is amazing. They had like this technical think tank. And we talked about oncology a lot. And AI for oncology is incredibly powerful, because with oncology, you have a number of people that sit around and then discuss a case and make a decision about the next course of action for the individual. AI reduces the time to be able to make the right decision. It doesn't take away the need for those incredibly knowledgeable consultants. It adds to their knowledge at the time that they need to make quick decisions. And that's what I think is exactly the same financial services. It gives us an ability to be quicker, to update and feed in. And so we use it in our categorization tool. We use machine learning. We have done for the last 10 years. We have our consumers that use our personal financial management app. And they tell us when we've got the category right for groceries, fuel, whatever it might be. They're constantly changing it, making it right, ticking, yeah, that's right, that's what that category is. So that informs the way we then ingest all this data and then are able to give those kind of decisioning tools to organisations based on that categorisation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, AI, large language models we're looking at the moment as well. So there's definitely, I'm an advocate, there's a place for it, definitely. It doesn't replace people, and particularly in financial services, it should enable more people to be able to talk to the right people.
Yeah, enable was the key word.
Exactly, enablement.
From the session this morning, Really interesting. And I mean, obviously this is part of our Women in Leadership series. So we always do touch upon the gender element. So we've referenced a lot of AI and tech, female talent. I mean, from your world, Suzanne, the balance between male, female, if there's been more of a dominant within the industry sectors in which you've worked, what would you say you've seen, and maybe how that's adapted or changed somewhat throughout the different companies you've worked in?
Yeah, I'm very used to being the only female in the room throughout my whole career. At a senior level, less so at, I think of my early days at telco, yeah, we were the minority, probably 20%. But then into sales leadership, yeah, single female. In Samsung, I was one of only 2 senior exec directors in Europe.
Oh, wow.
2.
Wow.
I mean, Samsung is a very traditional male, but it's a very male kind of organization, and was working really, really hard to change its view on diversity, and has done a great job in doing that. There's now female VPs and across the board, and so they have done a great job. Yeah. But as my career has grown over time, you know, that's today. In the past, it wasn't. And particularly in a commercial role, I think the sad thing is not a lot of females are confident to go into a commercial role. And so that would be something I would always encourage. And then add tech to that, commercial tech. Those two, up until probably the last sort of couple of years, it's been very much minority. However, it is changing, it's just not changing fast enough.
Well, your CEO at Money Hub's
Yeah,
female.
Samantha Sam is, incredibly powerful woman. CFO Amanda. So we have a 50-50 board, which is great. And even on some of our new investors, female as well, who've come onto the board from our new investors. And there are actually a great number of senior CEOs across fintech. But again, I still think it's in the 30s%. It's not where we want it to be at the 50s. And I kind of, again, I was reflecting on, has anybody stopped me? Have I had any, has there been any real elbows out? No, luckily enough, I've never been pushed down because I was a woman. However, I also recognise I'm an extremely strong, self-confident woman. And that's a really important part that I remember somebody saying, and it's so true, and you read it a lot, that men will apply for a job because they believe they can do it. Women won't apply for a job because they'll wait until they think they're ready.
That is so true. And actually, it's come up within some of the other interviews we've done with this podcast series. It seems to be very much a recurring theme. So you're not alone in what you've said. I mean, some of the other ladies we've interviewed have said exactly the same thing, almost word for word. What advice would you then give to the younger female talent, whether in financial or your past industry sectors, telco as well, but just generally, what would you say to our younger budding female talent?
I think trust yourself. Really trust yourself. Believe that what you've got to offer is unique because you're an individual, and what comes out of what you say and who you are and how you present it, nobody else has got that. But in the same respect, we're all really similar. So whilst we go home and have a bit of a worry about something or feel elated about something or are concerned that, did I do that right? Have I presented the right thing? We all think the same. Men just think it's slightly less than women. They think less about, did I mess that up? They think about, I messed it up, in my opinion. But they think less about the impact on others. They think more about the impact on themselves. Women spend more time thinking about the impact on others. If we spent more time thinking about ourselves, we probably wouldn't worry about it quite so much. So I think it's believe that you can do what you can do, and that you've got a role to play, and that you've got a great voice and a great opinion. But have your motivation, have your driver behind it.
That's key.
Because otherwise, say you wake up in the morning and it's, well, maybe I won't, because there's nothing important enough for you to want to make it happen. And some of those things are, again, real little snippets. I buy my first horse. I don't have children, so my money gets spent on my horse. Buy my first horse lorry because I compete. I was in tears. Put my first top hat on when I got to dressage level. I was in tears. But these are my motivators. These are my drivers. These are the things that I work towards. My yin and my yang. I can't do my job without my horses. I can't do my horses without my job because they pay for it. And being really clear about that. And then the one other thing I think as well is super important is sometimes I think people feel they need to do things because that's what is expected of them. And that's not true.
I'd agree with that.
It's not. I have the classic personal development plan, and people, rabbit in headlights. Oh my God, what am I supposed to say? Some people are really clear. Yeah, in 3 years' time, I want to be a CEO, or I want to be a sales director, or whatever. Often people are like, I'm really not sure. Actually, what's really important to me now is my family. That's great. We need people who want to care about their family and do a great job today. as well as we need people who want to be something brilliant tomorrow. Everybody has a role. And yeah, just that super confidence. One other little tiny story, I'm a real storyteller, sorry.
It's good.
I did, when I was at Samsung, we did the 5 peaks, which is Snowdonia, Cambrai, oh God, what's Ben Nevis, Carrigtwohill Hill, and Slieve Donard.
Yeah.
So England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and southern Northern Ireland. We did it in 48 hours in a minibus. That's really hard. 13 of us, 11 people walking, 2 people driving a minibus. On the last mountain, a few people injured. I knew people were going to turn back. I was really tired. I thought, do you know what? If somebody goes, I'll go with them. So, traipsing along at the back, thinking, oh God, this is really hard. Okay, I think, they might be going back, I'll go back. And then I heard we had a guide, because it was the hardest mountain to climb, saying to Connor, my CEO, I won't do the Irish accent because I'll embarrass myself, but just saying, look, Connor, if we want to make this 48 hours, you might need to tap a few people on the shoulder and tell them to turn back. I was like, well, you're not tapping me on the shoulder and telling me I can't do it. That's it. I was the first up the mountain, motivating everybody up. That was so powerful mentally for me that I hadn't realized how important my own personal decision making was to me. And that was just, you won't tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
I'll make my own decision. So, there's so much about mental health, isn't there, at the moment?
Yes, yeah.
And so much, you can't just sit and tell someone that they should feel better, or they should do more, or they should do that job, or apply for this, or learn that, or people have to make their own decisions. And as I come back to that inspiring, how can you inspire someone to make their own decisions to then do whatever it is they want to do in life that's going to motivate them?
I think that's really, really good advice. Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been very insightful, and thank you for your parting words of advice to our younger female talent. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you.